When Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton fell for each other on the set of Cleopatra, it triggered a Vatican outrage, nearly bankrupted 20th Century Fox, and shook Hollywood to its core. But what did they actually do that was so scandalous? And how did one affair nearly destroy an entire industry? This video unpacks how one affair became the most expensive scandal in film history and forever changed movies, stardom, and fame itself. The scale of Cleopatra's production stood apart even in an era known for excess. In the early 1960s, as television lured audiences away from theaters, studios like 20th Century Fox doubled down on spectacle. Their answer was a remake of Cleopatra, a film that would outshine anything audiences had seen, and, they hoped, lure moviegoers back with sheer grandeur. Fox spared nothing to create a world that felt as real as it was extravagant. Fox poured resources into it like never before, building 79 elaborate sets and producing tens of thousands of costumes. One gown worn by Elizabeth Taylor was even woven with 24-karat gold thread, a glittering symbol of the film's excess. The ambition behind Cleopatra was matched only by the scale of its problems. In 1960, filming began at Pinewood Studios in Britain, but the production quickly ran into trouble. Elizabeth Taylor, already the highest-paid star in Hollywood, fell gravely ill during the shoot. In early 1961, her pneumonia became so severe that doctors performed an emergency tracheotomy to save her life. The months-long shutdown that followed meant millions of dollars worth of sets and footage were abandoned, with nothing salvageable from the initial effort. To keep the project alive, Fox decided to move everything to Rome's Cinecittà Studios in 1961. This meant scrapping all the elaborate sets from London and rebuilding them all from scratch in Italy. The move, combined with the loss of earlier work, sent costs soaring. The film's appetite for resources was so great that its demand for materials like lumber and concrete caused shortages throughout Italy. Even filming a single scene, such as Cleopatra's grand entrance into Rome, could take months and required hundreds of extras, horses, and complex props, all of which added to the spiraling expense. Even more damaging, the film began without a finished script. Director Joseph L. Mankiewicz had to rewrite scenes at night and film them the next day, improvising as they went. Delays piled up. Scenes like Cleopatra's dramatic arrival in Rome took months to shoot and required hundreds of extras, animals, and props. What started with a $2 million budget ballooned to $44 million, more than $300 million today. Fox was bleeding money, even selling off parts of its studio backlot to survive. But with so much invested, they had no choice but to press on. Behind the camera, the film's grandeur remained breathtaking. But for those on set, the real drama was just beginning, and it had nothing to do with the script. In late 1961, as filming continued in Rome, the focus shifted to the growing connection between Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. The production of Cleopatra had brought them together under intense circumstances. Both were married, Taylor to Eddie Fisher and Burton to Sybil Williams. But their chemistry was clear to everyone on set. Their relationship began quietly, but the signs soon became impossible to ignore. Taylor later described the moment she realized her feelings for Burton. On one of his rough mornings, hungover and vulnerable, he asked her to hold a cup of coffee to his lips. That gesture, she said, changed everything for her. Their bond deepened quickly, and soon Taylor and Burton were inseparable. The cast and crew noticed their closeness, and rumors spread beyond the studio walls. The affair might have remained a private matter, but the production's high profile and the couple's star power made them irresistible to the press. Paparazzi, determined to get proof of the romance, went so far as to disguise themselves as extras to sneak into the Cinecittà set. They captured photos of Taylor and Burton laughing together, holding hands, and sharing quiet moments between takes. One image of the pair lounging on a yacht during a filming break became a worldwide sensation. The media seized on these images, and the Taylor-Burton affair dominated headlines across the globe. News outlets reported daily on their relationship, often pushing stories about the film's troubled production into the background. The scale of the coverage was so massive that, in February 1962, when astronaut John Glenn orbited the Earth, some newspapers chose to feature Taylor and Burton's romance on their front pages instead of the historic spaceflight. The public's appetite for details about the affair seemed insatiable, and their story became a global obsession. The attention wasn't limited to gossip columns. The Vatican, through its official newspaper, L'Osservatore Romano, condemned Taylor's behavior in unusually harsh terms, calling her affair with Burton erotic vagrancy and suggesting she was a threat to family values and public morals. This statement gave the scandal a new level of seriousness, framing it not just as a personal or Hollywood issue, but a matter of moral concern. The condemnation from such a prominent institution only fueled the media frenzy and added to the sense that this was no ordinary celebrity scandal. In the United States, the reaction was just as strong. Some politicians weighed in, with Congresswoman Iris Blitch publicly suggesting that Taylor and Burton should be barred from re-entering the country, labeling them as undesirable because of their adulterous behavior. The affair was discussed in the halls of government, and the line between private life and public reputation seemed to vanish. The scrutiny extended to their families, and both Eddie Fisher and Sybil Williams eventually left the production in disgrace, unable to escape the fallout. Tabloid newspapers and magazines capitalized on every development, publishing clandestine photos and sensational headlines almost daily. The relentless pursuit of Taylor and Burton by the press marked a turning point in celebrity coverage, with paparazzi culture gaining new momentum from the scandal. The public's fascination was matched only by the intensity of the backlash, and the couple's every move was watched and documented. Despite the criticism and the constant attention, Taylor and Burton's relationship only grew stronger. The hostility from the press and moral authorities seemed to unite them further, creating a sense of defiance. They became more than just actors. They were now the central figures in a real-life drama that overshadowed even the grand spectacle of Cleopatra itself. The scandal, quickly dubbed Le Scandale, was no longer just about two people's private choices. It exposed the growing appetite for intimate details about celebrities and the willingness of the media to pursue those stories at any cost. As Cleopatra's production dragged on, the Taylor-Burton affair became the lens through which the entire project was viewed, eclipsing the film's artistic ambitions and redefining the boundaries of fame and privacy. This new reality brought a level of chaos to the production that no one had anticipated. With the world watching and the pressure mounting, the question became whether Cleopatra could survive the turmoil, or if the scandal would finally push the troubled production past the breaking point. While the spotlight stayed fixed on Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, the real story behind the scenes was a production teetering on the edge of collapse. The set in Rome became a magnet for chaos, with the Taylor-Burton affair drawing relentless media attention. Paparazzi infiltrated the studio grounds, sometimes posing as extras or bribing crew members, all to snap a photo that could make international headlines. The constant presence of journalists and photographers created an environment where it was nearly impossible to keep the cast and crew focused on the work at hand. The disruption didn't stop at the studio gates. The media frenzy spilled over into the daily operations of the film, making every step of the process unpredictable. Crew members struggled to maintain order as rumors and speculation swirled. Publicist Jack Brodsky summed up the confusion, saying that Cleopatra was the only film he'd worked on where no one knew what scene would be shot until they arrived on set. Director Joseph L. Mankiewicz faced a script in constant flux, often writing new pages overnight just to keep production moving. The lack of a finished screenplay meant that continuity suffered, and scenes had to be reshot when details didn't match from one day to the next. The scale of the logistical problems was staggering. Cleopatra's grand entrance into Rome, one of the film's most ambitious sequences, took several months to complete. The scene required hundreds of extras, animals, and complex set pieces, all of which had to be coordinated in a city already dealing with shortages of materials due to the film's demands. Each delay drove up costs and complicated the already tangled shooting schedule. The original cut of the film ran nearly 5 hours, a testament to the sheer volume of footage that was shot and the struggle to find a coherent story amid the chaos. Financially, the situation for 20th Century Fox became dire. The budget, which started at $2 million, ballooned to $44 million, equivalent to over $300 million today. The mounting expenses forced the studio to take drastic measures. To keep the company afloat, Fox sold off 300 acres of its historic backlot, land that would later become Century City. This wasn't just a business decision, it was a direct response to the financial drain caused by Cleopatra's runaway production. The crisis led to the ousting of Fox's president, Spyros Skouras, and brought Daryl F. Zanuck back to the studio in hopes of controlling costs and salvaging the project. Despite the chaos, Cleopatra did reach completion. Its release in 1963 was a major event, and the film earned 4 Academy Awards for technical achievements. It also became the highest-grossing film of the year, taking in $24 million at the US box office. But even with these successes, the film's earnings fell far short of covering its enormous budget. The studio's financial losses were so severe that Cleopatra became known as the film that nearly bankrupted 20th Century Fox. The impact of this disaster was felt far beyond the studio's balance sheet. Cleopatra's troubled production and the relentless coverage of Taylor and Burton's affair shattered the old image of Hollywood as a place of untouchable glamour. The private lives of stars became inseparable from their public roles, and the industry's carefully managed facade began to crumble. The scandal and financial fallout forced studios to reconsider how they made movies and how they managed the public image of their stars. As the dust settled, it was clear that Hollywood could not return to the way things were. The chaos that nearly destroyed Cleopatra had exposed the vulnerabilities of the old studio system and changed the rules for good. What came next would not only reshape the economics of filmmaking, but also redefine how the world saw its biggest stars. Hollywood's transformation began in the wake of Cleopatra's fallout and the Taylor-Burton scandal. The old studio system, which had relied on ironclad contracts and moral clauses to control its stars, began to unravel. Studios once dictated not only the roles actors played, but also their public personas and private behavior. The Taylor-Burton affair, broadcast across headlines and television screens, made it clear that this level of control was no longer possible. Audiences were drawn to the reality behind the performances, and the illusion of perfect, untouchable stars faded. As the public's appetite for authenticity grew, actors gained more freedom over their careers and personal lives. The traditional 7-year contracts and strict moral codes fell away, and for the first time, stars could negotiate as free agents. The financial shock of Cleopatra's budget, over $44 million, a sum that would be more than $300 million today, forced Hollywood to reconsider its priorities. The failure of the film's extravagant approach signaled the end of big-budget historical epics that had dominated the 1950s. Studios shifted away from massive spectacle, turning instead to projects with tighter budgets and more creative risk. Films like Bonnie and Clyde soon emerged, reflecting a new era focused on storytelling and innovation rather than sheer scale. This pivot allowed for a wave of films in the late 1960s and 1970s that broke with old formulas and brought new voices into the spotlight. Meanwhile, the Taylor-Burton romance changed the way the public related to celebrities. Their relationship, played out in real time before a global audience, became a phenomenon that overshadowed even the film itself. The relentless pursuit by paparazzi and the explosion of tabloid journalism set an early template for what would become modern celebrity media. Photographers followed Taylor and Burton everywhere, capturing candid moments that fed a growing market for private glimpses into the lives of the famous. News of the affair often eclipsed coverage of the movie, revealing that the public's fascination with stars was no longer limited to their performances. The line between personal scandal and professional reputation blurred, and the boundaries of celebrity privacy shifted. This shift in media attention also changed the rules for stardom. Despite condemnation from religious and political leaders, including the Vatican's public criticism of Taylor's conduct, her popularity endured. Rather than ending her career, the scandal seemed to make her even more compelling to audiences. In 1965, Taylor won her second Academy Award for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, reinforcing her place at the top of the industry. Her continued success showed that scandal no longer spelled disaster for a star's career. Instead, controversy could fuel public interest and even enhance a celebrity's appeal. The impact of the Cleopatra scandal rippled through Hollywood's business side as well. The industry moved away from the rigid structures of the past and embraced new models that prioritized creative freedom and adaptability. The collapse of the old system opened the door for a generation of filmmakers and actors to experiment with form and content, leading to a period of innovation that redefined American cinema. Audiences responded to stories that felt more immediate and personal, and the industry learned to adapt to changing tastes. Today, the legacy of Cleopatra and the Taylor-Burton affair is visible in the way celebrity culture operates. Scandal, paparazzi coverage, and the blending of public and private lives are now standard features of fame. The fascination with the off-screen lives of stars, first amplified by this affair, continues in the era of social media and 24-hour news cycles. The events surrounding Cleopatra didn't just mark a turning point for one film or two actors. They set the pattern for decades of celebrity journalism and Hollywood reinvention. As Cleopatra faded from the box office and Taylor and Burton's romance moved into the history books, Hollywood emerged changed. The old rules no longer applied, and a new kind of stardom took shape, one defined by visibility, vulnerability, and the ability to turn chaos into opportunity. The story of Cleopatra and its stars remains a reminder of how quickly an industry can reinvent itself when forced to confront its own limits, setting the stage for everything that would follow. The chaos of Cleopatra and the passion between Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton did more than end an era. It created a new template for fame. Their affair became the moment when private lives became public entertainment, and the media's appetite for personal drama found a permanent place in the headlines. Taylor later said she had never regretted a moment of her time with Burton, acknowledging the price they paid for living so openly. Today's headlines still chase personal drama, just as they did in Rome 60 years ago. Audiences now expect transparency and off-screen stories as part of the entertainment experience. Which modern celebrity scandal reminds you of Taylor and Burton? Let us know in the comments below.